Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk from the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button as we're now on the road to 400 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports content, sports talk, anything from sports betting to updated rankings every week, it's all right here on the Talk from the Town podcast. And here today, we are going to be reacting to some of Week 11's best games. What a slate of games yesterday. Important games, close games, all over the board. They were just great. Between the Bears and Vikings, Seahawks-Rams, Chiefs-Broncos. There's a lot of games to talk about here today, so make sure to stay tuned, and let's get right into it here today, starting off with the Bears and Vikings, 19-17. If you would have told me through 11 weeks of the season that the Bears would be leading the NFC North, I would have said it would have taken a lot to go their way, especially in their division. I would have been like, is Detroit suffering like a lot of major injuries? Is Green Bay, are they the same? Is Parsons out for the year? Is Love out for the year? Are they both out for the year? Is this whole McCarthy thing blowing up in Minnesota? Which it is. I'll talk about that here in a few. But I would have said it would have taken a lot to go their way. And, Detroit suffered some injuries, especially in the secondary. But what team isn't suffering injuries right now? They're mostly healthy for the most part. I mean, Laporta did go on IR yesterday, but they've just been playing great. They have. The Bears, these late game heroics by Caleb, which this late Caleb is taking pretty much every single week, has been nothing short of incredible. I think there's definitely still some things there that could, be improved. Like, I still think that Caleb, it still feels like there's a lot there to be had. But in terms of his late game heroics, how he's basically unsackable. Like, I'm just watching him yesterday against Minnesota. That pocket collapses or whatever the situation is, the pass rusher gets to the outside on him and gets a hold of him. Doesn't matter. He is near impossible to bring down, seriously. And when he gets out, he starts spinning, he's doing his thing. It's really fun to watch. It's special stuff. I will say that when he does get out there and he starts getting on, like, it's basically him working back there in the backfield, like he's having to get someone open, he's running all over the place, that it's a bit of a wild card when that ball comes out of his hand, because it can be thrown like 1,000 miles an hour, and it can be an errant throw like 20 yards over, Odunze, Komet, Loveland, whoever's head it is. It can be errant by like 20 yards. Or it can be just a beautiful laser throw in their hands. And it's like, how in the hell? There's like maybe 5 other quarterbacks in the league that can make that play that Caleb Williams just that he just made. So there's a lot of upside there in Chicago. And it feels like for the first time, really in my lifetime, and for a long time in Chicago, that there is some sort of structure within the organization with Ben Johnson, with Caleb is starting to now pan out. The play calling by Ben Johnson, where he's really a run-first guy. And even though they had all those flashy plays in Detroit, and they've shown some kind of flashy plays this year in Chicago as well, he is a run-first guy. That duo he had with Montgomery and Gibbs, he used that before he would use Laporta, Amon-Ra, Jared Goff, Jamison Williams. Even though you remember those plays more when Jamison Williams is open 40 yards down the field and torching somebody, he loved to go into Monty and Gibbs at first. And that's kind of what he's doing with what's his name now? Manungai. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. If not, I'm sorry for butchering it. And DeAndre Swift. And those running backs aren't nearly as good as those two in terms of a duo. I mean, Manungai's been playing great. They are good running backs. But if you had to give me a duo to pick, I think 100 out of 100 times we're all picking Gibbs and Montgomery. And he's keeping the other team off the field with his run game. He's asking less of Caleb. Like, Caleb has the athleticism and the attributes to go out there and play hero ball. Now, whether or not he can do it consistently as guys like Allen and Mahomes, no, he can't. At least to this point in his career, he just hasn't. He's not as accurate. He's just not as fluid doing it. He can sometimes got to be all over the place, like I mentioned earlier, with his errant throws and stuff. But he's asking less of him, a lot less on his plate. And for the first time in Caleb's career throughout a year and a half, he looks comfortable. He looks poised. And that's what I think has led him to be so good on these late game heroic drives as well. Like Cincinnati yesterday against Minnesota. He's looked fantastic. He has. And meanwhile, I do give Caleb a lot of credit. I will say I think the reason for them winning a lot of these games is Ben Johnson and like I mentioned with him, the way he runs the ball, the way the offense is balanced. Their defense has been getting better throughout the week so far. I think the Bears are a team to look out for. Now, do I think that could they go on to make a run in the playoffs? I'd lean on the side of no, just because they're incredibly inexperienced. Ben Johnson is a coach, Caleb in general. It can get to a player. We've seen it with Sam Darnold. Hell, even look at how long Sam Darnold's been playing for. And it just feels like for the first time in his career, he's the long-term answer as a starter. And you've seen the way he played yesterday against the Rams in the playoffs with Minnesota last year. Like, the playoffs is a different game. You're going against the best teams in the league. Probably, they might actually, if they do end up winning the NFC North, they're going to end up probably getting a home game of some sort. So we'll find out. There's still a lot left of the season, but man, this progress Chicago has made from where they were at the first 2 weeks of the season, where I kind of felt like it was going to be what it was last year, where they actually, I think they started off pretty good last season. They started off with a couple of wins, even though they didn't start off like that this year. A slow start, looking like they were just headed back in the direction of 5-12, 6-11, or whatever it is, kind of just stuck in the same old spot they've been in for what feels like forever. And the Ben Johnson and Caleb relationship, people were talking about, is this thing fragmented already? Like, can this be saved? Should they come in and try starting Tyson Bagent to try and save in their season? And look, the team didn't panic. Caleb didn't panic. Ben Johnson didn't panic. They stood their ground. They're on like a 6-game win streak or something like that right now, leading the NFC North. So you have to give this team a ton of credit, especially the way they played yesterday. I feel like there's only room, like I mentioned with Caleb, like there's only room for improvement. I feel like there's more there to be had. Like, dude, I feel like there's more. And that's what you get when you get a player as talented as him. Like, you watch him, it's like, oh, if we could just make this throw by this much, if we could just get like this much more consistent, it'd be fantastic. So he's getting there, though. He's getting better every week. But for Minnesota, it just seems like for them, it's just a downhill trend every week now. They had that pretty statement win against Detroit a couple weeks ago. Felt good. McCarthy came back. Played good for some of the game. That kind of towards the end of the game, it kind of petered off a little bit. But I watched it yesterday. It's just, if you watch him throw, like simple 5, 8, 10-yard out routes to Justin Jefferson or whoever it is, it could be me out there. It doesn't matter. No one is catching these footballs. These are balls that are thrown 20 yards and hit it, or thrown 10 yards away and going 20 yards out of bounds, hitting the athletic trainers on the bench. Like, these are throws that are being missed so badly. And yes, Jordan Addison had a pretty crucial drop down the middle at some point, and I forget what point in the game it was. It's not necessarily just all on him. And I do give Kevin O'Connell some of the blame as well. I'll get into that here in a minute. But it gives me a little bit of like Josh Rosen vibes a little bit. And you're probably like, how the hell does this remind you of Josh Rosen? I see the way they both play out there. And I do think McCarthy was the better prospect coming out of college. Obviously, he was more kind of a college hero, national champion in Michigan. Just seeing it probably as an overall better player than Rosen was. But they're both drafted around the same spot. Rosen's situation was a lot worse, but I watched him out there. And I seen McCarthy and I seen Rosen play, and I made sure to go back and watch some of Rosen's highlights yesterday evening, because this thought kind of popped up in my head. I'm like, who does he remind me of when he plays? And I see him out there, the ball's flying all over the place, just singing at 1,000 miles an hour in there, kind of just weird sidearm angles and just a weird arm motion in general, which, look, if your arm motion's weird and it works, I don't care. Whatever works, it works, but it's not working for these two guys. Especially not Rosen anymore. He ain't been in the NFL in years at this point. And they just played very, like, go and watch Josh Rosen's tape. Like, these guys played very similar, and McCarthy has an infinitely more talented team of guys to work with. On his defense, on his offense, guys he's throwing to, like, it's not even remotely close. And they look eerily similar out there playing, which is kind of worrisome. Now, McCarthy's obviously a different human being from Josh Rosen. But and hopefully he can be fixed. But I'm not writing this kid's career off. I'm not at all. I'm not saying his career is over. There's still 7, 8 weeks left of the season for him to maybe give this team some sort of hope. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I just think between their division, it just feels like they're a lot better than them. In terms of just momentum and things heading in the right direction, maybe besides Detroit right now. Green Bay, off of a big win yesterday, kind of felt like they got their offense going a little bit yesterday against New York. I just can't see it getting there with Minnesota right now. Jefferson's kind of seems like his head's out of it. The whole team in general, And McCarthy, he's got to turn it around, because whether or not Minnesota will hold on to him next year, he's on a short leash. Whether it's with the Vikings, whether or not he gets traded to Cleveland, to Las Vegas, whoever. He could be looking at, and he's sitting by it. I watched Cleveland's game yesterday, and their offensive line, it might as well be you out there blocking. They are terrible blocking on that offensive line. Terrible. It's an awful watch. It really is. He's going to be out there throwing to Judy and Cedric Tillman instead of Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson and those guys. It's going to be a completely different atmosphere. And he's just going to be like, damn, like, what the hell is going on? I think, especially if the Browns or the Raiders draft a quarterback in the second or the late first round or whatever it is, McCarthy's on a short leash. He is, and I'm not saying he's going to be a Brown or a Raider for sure next year, but I'm just saying that's where the path of his career could go, is in a lot less of a stable organization. It's like, dude, you got it here, bro. It's like, you just got to find yourself and manage to get it somehow. I remember a couple of weeks ago with McCarthy, I forget exactly what it was, but he mentioned something about his, nine's arrived or something like that, or it's 9, talking about his number, and it was just corny as hell. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really corny. And Brady and them mentioned yesterday that he has 9 turnovers in 5 games. I'm like, bro, the only thing that's 9 is your 9 turnovers in 5 games, bro. Like, that shit, if that's what your 9 means, that you need to change it. Like, you need to find a different mode of some sort, because it ain't working for you right now, bro. I hate to say it, but it's true. I think the Vikings, between O'Connell calling a bunch of passing plays, which isn't making McCarthy's life any easier at all. These are close games they're in. They're not down 14, 20 points where they have to try crawling back in the game and making big throws and big plays. Like, these are one-possession games in the second and third quarter, and he's out there slinging it like there's 2 minutes in the fourth quarter left. And that's why I don't necessarily think it's all McCarthy's fault. I've seen it last year in the playoff game with Darnold. Like, he's just out there making him throw the ball like a gazillion times. And it's just like, relax. O'Connell seems like he gets in panic mode and just wants to be flashy. And I get it. You have Jefferson and Jordan Addison, who's like having a Lamborghini and a Ferrari in your garage, is your 2 receivers. Like, the running game isn't as pretty as the passing game. We all know that. You want big, explosive plays. Like, why the hell am I going to go drive this Toyota Camry in my garage? Which I'm not necessarily calling Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason a Toyota Camry, but there are some sweet players, but they're just not as flashy as an Addison or a Jefferson. And I was like, why the hell would I do that when I could drive this Lamborghini and Ferrari as well? Like, right here, I got these 2 guys in front of me. I'm going to use them more than I use these guys in my backfield. Like, you love passing the ball, but, dude, you're not making McCarthy's life any easier. If anything, you're putting more pressure on him. The whole thing is just an absolute disaster right now in Minnesota. So they've got to figure that out fast, or he could be on his way out the door. O'Connell could be on the hot seat before you know it. They have a lot of talent on that team for them to be looking this bad right now. Seahawks-Rams 19-21, one of the biggest games of the day yesterday. Looking for a lot of people, including myself, had the Seahawks and the Rams in their 1 and 2 spot in their power rankings. I had the Seahawks at 2, I had the Rams at 1, and for this reason, that showed yesterday. And what I mentioned is, like, I had some Seahawks fans kind of be like, well, you look at them, they're more explosive than the Rams. The Rams are explosive, but, the last couple of weeks we've been on a heater. I think our defense is better. One of the main things I mentioned is, like, you can go player for player with this team, and they're pretty even. Like, these 2 teams are extremely talented, and the score was very close yesterday. It actually came down to a game-winning field goal that was missed. That's how close this game was, even regardless of all the turnovers. That Sam Darnold, can I trust him in big spots? And he throws a lot of deep balls. He relies a lot on big explosive plays. 4 interceptions yesterday in big spots, a big chance for them to take a lead in their division, get a win over the Rams, and it kind of crumbled under the pressure. Now, they actually almost ended up winning the game. Like I mentioned, it came down to the last second of the game. He missed a 61-yard. Jason Myers missed a 61-yard field goal. But they were in that game. Even as bad as Darnold played with all the turnovers, and if you throw 4 interceptions, there's no chance you're going to win the game. I don't even care if it came down to what it was yesterday, a last-second missed field goal. There's no chance you're going to win the game. That's way too many mistakes. too many empty opportunities, empty drives without a score, and just negative momentum. It just comes back to haunt you every time. And I thought the Rams, I want to give a shout out to a guy who, even though he did have like a pass interference towards the end of the game, which was kind of ticky-tacky. I thought he did have a little bit of a hold on the arm, but I've seen worse. Look, it was called. I'm not going to complain it was called, but if it wasn't called, I wouldn't complain either. It was just kind of that way. It's Emmanuel Forbes on the Rams. I feel like he's actually kind of turned his career around on Los Angeles. Every time I watch a Rams game, it's like Emmanuel Forbes with a pick, with a big break up, like kind of a little bit of a comeback story there. Look, they took a chance on this guy who on Washington was an absolute liability on the field. He was terrible on the football field, but Los Angeles has really coached this guy up to be, he's not an elite corner, but I'd say he's definitely a serviceable corner now. Like from where he was to where this guy, you couldn't even have him. Honestly, I think it was a liability sitting on your damn bench, more or less having him on the field. The way he's kind of turned it around there in Los Angeles, I thought has actually been pretty impressive. He had a couple of really good plays yesterday. Again, there was that pass interference play I thought was questionable, but kind of wanted to give him a little bit of a shout out. I thought he's actually kind of made it a little bit of a career resurgence on the Rams, but this is what I mentioned with the Seahawks. And what has worried me with the Seahawks is in big spots, can Sam Darnold keep back from the turnovers? He's a big play guy. We know he loves throwing the ball down the field. He's a gunslinger. Can he manage to be able to keep these turnovers down? Yesterday, kind of proved my point of like, look, we're only midway through the season, a little over midway through the season. Lots of time to turn it around. They're only 7-3 anyway. But this is what I'm worried about with the Seahawks in the playoffs. So when he has to go against Philly, when he probably has to go against LA again, whoever it is, even San Francisco, even though they're all injury prone to hell, these are elite teams and elite defenses, Green Bay, that he is going to have to not turn the ball over. That's what makes teams lose playoff games. As you look, who's winning the turnover battle in the playoffs? Those are often the teams who win playoff games. And the Seahawks defense is more than good enough to create turnovers. But I think the Seahawks offense also can create a lot of turnovers as well, which puts your defense on the field more, tires them out, and it creates a lot more opportunities for the other team. You put them on the field more than you should, and that in the playoffs will come back to haunt you. Yesterday, look, I thought JSN had a pretty good game. Matt Stafford only making his MVP resume even better. No really bad turnovers for the Rams. I don't even think they had a turnover at all yesterday. I might be mistaken. If they did, they only had like one, but I don't think they did. At the end of the day, that's what wins you games. Not even just playoff games, regular season games, is who can win the turnover battle. Rams won it, even though it wasn't a pretty win. It looks like the way they played compared to the Seahawks and all the turnovers, like I mentioned, they should have won that game by like 20 points, but they didn't. And that game lived up to it. It came down to the last second. They have another matchup, which is going to be crucial later on in the year. I think it might be the last week of the year in terms of who wins the NFC West, but careful for those 49ers too. I'm not talking about the Cardinals and 49ers game today, but Brock Purdy looked really good yesterday, so they got to keep an eye out for that. And at least this game lives up to the hype because that was a really good game yesterday. Chiefs-Broncos 19-22. Another game-winning field goal scenario for the Broncos. Ended up knocking it down. Something that was pretty interesting, though, that I was keeping an eye out for with the game-winning field goal was the Chiefs ended up blocking the Broncos field goal last year, like around the exact same spot that the game-winning field goal was kicked yesterday. Now, for the Chiefs, and what's kind of coming back to haunt them right now is I think they're sitting at 500 at 5-5. And they're out of the playoff picture throughout 11 weeks right now. It's coming back to haunt them. And what made them so good last year is you're like, how the hell did the Chiefs suck? How were they 15-2, whatever it is? I'm just saying what was going around sports media and everything. Is their ability to win one-score games. They were like 11-0 in one-score games last year. I mentioned with the Chiefs this year, and what was worrisome with them, and it's coming to light, is you're not going to be able to repeat that again. And these one-score games, the Broncos are finding their way in one-score games. They're kind of like the Chiefs now from last year. It's like they don't necessarily look great, but they're winning games, and they're winning a lot of one-score games. And what did the Chiefs do? They managed to still get to the Super Bowl. Now they got blown out in the Super Bowl. Whether or not the Broncos can get there is one thing, but your ability to win one-score games is huge because the majority of your games are going to be one-score games. And that's where the Chiefs are kind of sitting at, is like one-score games. They just kind of don't seem like they have the firepower. They're just kind of all over the place right now. I think they're missing a prime Travis Kelce. They are. I think one player this team will be in the running for in the offseason is Kyle Pitts. Now, I don't think he's going to replace Travis Kelce at all in terms of the legacy he's left there or anything. But I think this team is really missing an X-factor player on offense. Like, I looked at receivers. It only works because Mahomes is back there. A receiving crew of Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, Juju Smith-Schuster has been washed up for years now. Kind of a washed up Travis Kelce. He's kind of resurged a little bit in moments, but if it was just about anyone else, this wouldn't work. This operation, they wouldn't even be 5-5. But Mahomes was in the MVP race, kind of worked his way out of it. These performances haven't necessarily been great over the last couple of weeks, but yesterday, the Broncos, this was a defensive battle between both teams, not even just Denver, not just Kansas City, like both teams, an absolute defensive battle. And that's how I think these teams are going to win their games, is just that their defenses are elite all over the field. One of the things I've noticed too with Kansas City that I feel like they're hurting from a little bit is like Chris Jones isn't quite the factor he used to be at all. Sorry, I actually just got an alert, and I looked down at my phone. The Jets have just benched Justin Fields. I'm not making a big news story out of that we all knew that was bound to happen. So I just had to look at that for a sec. But these two defenses are elite. And Chris Jones, they're missing Chris Jones' elite pass rushing ability. He's good, but he's not what he was a few years ago. I think we're all starting to kind of come to terms with that. It's like the Chiefs are just starting to look a little old. Like they are. Not Mahomes necessarily, but Smith-Schuster, he's older. He's been out of his prime for years now. He's just kind of beat up. Travis Kelce obviously doesn't look like how he did a few years ago. Chris Jones, this is a team that I think in the offseason, after an offseason next year, this team can be really dangerous, especially if they get younger, which they definitely are. They have a full draft coming up. Kansas City always seems to nail their draft picks. Look at McDuffie. Look at these guys. They've just nailed these picks. I think they just need an offseason to really get younger. The Chiefs, they just look old. That's why I've been saying that all years. They just look old out there. And the Broncos, a commanding lead in the AFC West now. I don't think there's really any chance the Chiefs are going to win this division. If they're going to want to get in the playoff spot, they're going to just snag a 7-6-5 seed or something like that. They're in the hunt right now. A lot of teams, Texans, the Ravens at 5-5. It was a good day for the Broncos yesterday. They played really well. Again, another one-score win, which I think is very important for Denver. Bo Nix yesterday. Again, Bo Nix still kind of inconsistent, but made some big-time throws, especially at the end of the game. His deep ball looked a little bit better yesterday, but how many are you really going to get against Kansas City? They are very good on that end. But, yeah, I think with Los Angeles losing yesterday, which is a big-time thing, not even just for Kansas City, but also for the Broncos, they seem like this is their thing to lose at this point. They win another game or two, especially in the next couple of weeks. I don't know who their next couple games are against, but this is all. The Broncos are in the driver's seat right now. This is their division to absolutely lose. Chargers look like they've really taken a step back. And the game against the Jags yesterday I thought was pretty concerning. So the Chiefs are loving that, but I don't know. We're going to have to see, but these Chiefs do not look like how they've been the last couple of years. They look old. So definitely some concerns there. And Broncos, man, in the driver's seat right now in the AFC West. Ravens, Browns, 23-16. I was going to talk about this game pretty briefly. There's not too much to talk about here, besides how the Ravens offense the last couple of weeks, Minnesota, and now this game against Cleveland, this has not looked very good. Now, Cleveland's defense at home is historically good this season. They are a different unit. Myles Garrett seems to be able to just do anything he wants against anyone. I'm convinced they could block him with 3 people and he could still manage to get past in time to get a sack. He really is. Myles Garrett is turning into one of the best pass rushers I've genuinely ever seen. I feel for him in a way because he's stuck in Cleveland, but at the same time I don't, because he actually had the out this year and was like, no, I'm going to stay in Cleveland. And it's like, dude, this pisses you on the sideline, bro. You kind of chose this at the end of the day. I get it's hard to walk away from hundreds of millions of dollars, whatever the hell his contract is. You can't necessarily walk away from that, especially when you're getting a little older, but he hasn't lost. He looks like he's getting better with age. Like, seriously, he is just, yesterday, when he had like 3 sacks, he had like 5 or 6 sacks against New England. Like, he had a couple of sacks, I think, in New York. He just genuinely is a one-man wrecking crew on that defensive line. It's pretty crazy. But, the Ravens offense, it's weird because for the first 6 weeks when they were 1-5, their defense was the issue. They were giving up over like 30 points a game, and they were averaging like 30 points a game on offense, but now it's flip-flop. They're winning games now, but their offense has completely taken a nosedive, and their defense has skyrocketed into like being one of the best defenses in the NFL. Kind of a repeat of what it was last season, except their offense didn't take a nosedive, and now their offense is taking a nosedive. This was an absolute like must-win. It was like, I don't know. It was life or death for the Ravens yesterday. That's the word I was trying to look for. They could not afford to lose this game against Cleveland at all. If they did, they ended up falling to 4-6, especially with Pittsburgh winning games. They couldn't afford to lose that game. That's why I didn't think Baltimore, no matter how bad I thought they played, and, Dylan Gabriel ended up getting a head injury. Shador had to end up subbing in. There was no chance I said Baltimore was going to lose that game. I just, even when they were down, I was like, there's just no way. Their season could have been really just shot at that point, especially if you lose a game like that to Cleveland. But they had the series sweep against Cleveland, and they're still trailing right behind Pittsburgh. So I will say for the Browns, their defense at home looks as good as it ever did yesterday. And Shador Sanders coming in. Just kind of want to talk about that here for a minute or so, even if a minute. Look, but he played like four drives or something like that. Looked a lot more poised on his last drive. I actually thought he looked good on his last drive. The ball, that was a really good play from Awuzie. I mean, I thought the throw was really good, but that was just better defense and offense. That was just really good defense. So you still have to give credit where it's due right there. But he made some pretty good throws. Look, he looked really flustered. That Cleveland offensive line, might as well me or you blocking for it, seriously. It is absolutely a monstrosity to watch. It's terrible. No, they don't have very good receiving talent. Jerry Jeudy is okay. But remember, before he got to Cleveland last year, he had like 1,400 yards, and he got a lot of that from Jameis Winston throwing at the ball. I mean, he really wasn't doing too much, to be honest with you. So he hasn't really done a lot this year either. I just, what do you expect him to do? And I'm just mentioning this because I already seen after like his second drive where he threw that interception, people were like, oh, see, that's why I said they shouldn't have drafted him higher. And I'm like, bro, he's played 4 drives. Like, give it a rest, please. Give it a rest a little bit at least. I'm like, damn. I think they're going to play it out the next couple of weeks, whether or not they have nothing to lose. I'd say give him a shot, see what you got. But I'm just like, brother, people are already saying, Shador, this is why I told people not to draft him. He sucked. He was bad in college. This and that's like, bro, he played 4 drives yesterday. Like, relax. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Panthers-Falcons 30-27. Bryce Young, where I was kind of at the beginning of the season with Bryce, I was like, you guys remember one of my boldest, hottest takes coming into the season was I thought Bryce Young was going to be an MVP candidate. He's not. He's definitely shown progression in his career from where he was a few years ago when he got benched for Andy Dalton, which this was last year, actually. He threw a Panthers a franchise record in yards yesterday. Pretty incredible. I was like, hey, good for Bryce. He was so poised out there yesterday. He was actually down on the ground for a bit, and I was like, oh, don't tell me this is it for him, man. He's having such a good game. I thought it was it. The players were waving the medical training staff or the medical staff over, and I was like, this might be it for Bryce. Maybe for the season. He's been dealing with a bit of an ankle injury. He missed a game a few weeks ago against Buffalo. I was like, is this it for Bryce? And he came back out, man. 448 yards, 3 touchdowns, game-winning drive. They went in overtime. Good for him. I mean, that was kind of yesterday I was talking about, or not yesterday, last Wednesday, someone asked me about Tyler Shuck, and they were going against, Bryce Young and the Panthers, and the Saints ended up winning that game. I was like, the thing is with Bryce, and what's concerning me is like, there is just some things, and I still feel this way a little bit, that he can't get over his height, and he can't get over his frame. He's not going to be able to get a frame like a Russell Wilson. Like, he's just not built like that. He's a small guy who moves okay, and it's just like, can he really be consistent in the NFL? He still has to work on his consistency, but he's proven he can play in this league. You throw for 450 yards against a number one pass defense in the NFL, you can play in this league and throw 3 touchdowns. They're 6-5. They're tied with the Buccaneers in terms of wins. They could have managed to beat the awful Saints last week. They'd be 7-4 and leading the NFC South. How crazy would that be? The Buccaneers would all of a sudden. Here's the thing with the Bucs, and what I think about them is, like, I think they thought they had this division in the driver's seat. The Panthers are sneaking right up on them. The Panthers are playing because they know they have something to play for right now. And they're playing hard, gritty football. I like their defense. They're fast. They're young. J.C. Horn has been really good. It's been really good. He just has. He's been one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL so far. For the Falcons, though, it was just a report that came in a few minutes ago on my phone as well. Kirk Cousins will be starting the rest of the season. Michael Penix is out. He's done. Season-ending knee surgery for him. So kind of a blow there for the Falcons, especially for Penix. Trying to have to find himself there and see if he can get himself going within that Falcons offense. But I think Raheem Morris that feels like a guarantee he's going to be out as the Atlanta Falcons head coach by the end of the season. I'm surprised he isn't already as we speak. But I think next year when Penix comes back, new coaching staff, hopefully they can hire it right. We will see we'll see a little bit more of a resurgence with Penix. Hopefully he can start breaking out then, because his relationship with Raheem Morris, he even mentioned it on the podium, it's just completely fragmented. Like, he feels like he has no direction. There's no coaching. So the Falcons season is over. Kirk Cousins looks washed because he is, and they're paying him hundreds of millions of dollars as it is. The roster isn't an issue. It's just the coaching. I believe it's just the coaching there in Atlanta. It's just brutal. But the Panthers, 6-5, big division win. They're tied now with the Buccaneers in terms of wins. Dude, I'm telling you, Ted McMillan, I mentioned this draft pick was going to be really good. He had over 100 yards. I mean, he has looked great. It's given Bryce Young a real weapon out there. Xavier Legette had a good touchdown. He's been pretty disappointing so far this season, but I had a pretty decent day yesterday. Yeah, man, Panthers really, thank gosh, they're out there proving me right now in terms of, I was like, hey, I think the Panthers could kind of have a breakout season. Could this team be a sneaky dark horse team in terms of making the playoffs? And right now they're in that race. They're absolutely there. Maybe they could end up pulling an upset in the division. I don't know. Buccaneers are suffering some injuries, but I think Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin are coming back this week. So I guess we'll have to see. This could come down to like a last week thing with the Bucs and Panthers. Lions, Eagles, 9-16. No, defense with the Eagles. This Eagles offense is not playing great at all. They have stud players everywhere. Saquon really looks like he's kind of taking a step back, to be honest with you. He just does not look good. I think he's not even on pace for like 1,000 yards this year or something I've seen. It's kind of crazy. One thing, though, you have to give Jalen Hurts credit for. While you had the whole thing going on with A.J. Brown, I don't know if you guys seen him on the stream. Then it was last week talking about the Eagles and all that. You just, look it up. It's everywhere. You can look up A.J. Brown's stream and you'll see it. He's playing some YouTube creator or Twitch streamer, Madden. And he was kind of just talking shit. But Jalen Hurts is doing a really good job not turning this ball over, because if he was throwing an interception or so a game, if this team was fumbling a lot, if they had a lot of turnovers, this team would lose a lot of games. But as I mentioned earlier, with the Rams and the Seahawks, the way teams win games is that they win the turnover battle. And yesterday, they had an interception on Goff, created a lot of turnovers on fourth down for the Lions. They were very good on fourth down. This Eagles defense has been playing fantastic. And to me, they're the main reason they're winning games. It's not their offense. It's been their defense, especially over the last couple of weeks. Their offense feels like there's a lot to be desired. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. They have too much talent to be scoring 16 points. Especially it feels like week in, week out, their offense just kind of stinks. Like against Green Bay last week, they just weren't very good. But the way their defense is looking, Jalen Hurts on turning the ball over. The Eagles, I don't care whether or not they're not putting up as many points as the Seahawks, the Rams, or whatever. I feel like come January, they're going to be the team to beat in January. They just are. To me, there's no doubt about it. Their roster, they feel like they have one of, if not the best roster in the NFC, the entirety of the NFL. Vic Fangio coaching this defense has been great. Again, Kevin Patullo in that offense still worries me. I still wonder if it's maybe an offensive coordinator issue. Again, I'm not a fan of these teams like the Ravens with Zach Orr, even though their defense has turned around. Of these teams that are Super Bowl or bust, hiring these guys that are just like developmental coordinators. Like, look what you did with Vic Fangio, an experienced coordinator. He turned your defense around last year. You guys instantly turned your season around last year and won the Super Bowl. Why wouldn't you go hire some guy who's experienced on offense? Like, you don't have time to develop a guy on offense. You're winning games. I get it. Jalen Hurts isn't turning the ball over. But if he was, your offense, you guys would be running Kevin Patullo out of Philadelphia. Like, to me, there's no doubt about it. So I can't stand these teams that are in Super Bowl or bust mode. Getting like developmental coordinators in there, like new guys. Like, I get it. You want fresh blood, but when you just came off of a Super Bowl win, like, this is not the time to do so. And it's this experiment with teams. It's not even just the Eagles, the Ravens included. This experiment does not work of hiring new guys. Like, I know they're 8-2 or whatever they are, but still, their offense has regressed, and it's just nowhere near where it should be at all. So, and the Lions, look, I love Dan Campbell, but I was talking to some of my friends yesterday, and I was saying one of the things with Dan Campbell, what I feel like I don't feel like his job's in jeopardy at all. I'm not saying that right now, but what I feel like, if this team has another couple of disappointing seasons, and it comes down to some fourth down, very risky calls that, whether or not they could have kicked the field goal or it is blatantly just costing them the game, this could cost Dan Campbell his job. I get being very aggressive on fourth down. I understand, but I feel like sometimes they're a little too aggressive to where I feel like they had points on the board. They just left there yesterday. Clearly their offense was not in a groove. You're missing Laporta, who's on IR now. There's just too many points there to be left on the board. And I feel like the Lions were in that position yesterday. When you do that, you put a lot of pressure on the Eagles. When you consistently miss fourth downs and you just leave no points there, like you just put no points on the board, the Eagles feel like they're in the driver's seat. Whether or not it's still a one touchdown game or whatever it is, if you kick 2 field goals and it's a 1-point game, or it's a 4-point game and you put some points up on the board, the Eagles aren't comfortable. When you miss a bunch of fourth downs, Eagles feel comfortable. Your offense just doesn't feel good. You're losing momentum. To me, there's some issues there. And I think they've just got to be they've got to be better on fourth down. And I feel like sometimes just a little too aggressive. I feel like that. Look, I don't hate being aggressive. I'm like, if you feel it, go all in. That's kind of what I'm like in life in general. I'm like, if you have a feeling that you want to do something, go all in on it. Be aggressive. There's no point of being passive. But I feel like if you're in a situation where there's points to be left there, where like you really feel like it's just the right move on like 4th and 5, 4th and 6, whatever it is, you have them in scoring position, even though the Eagles offense isn't great, sometimes it just feels like the reward is not greater than the risk at that point. Like, the risk is way greater than the reward at that point. So that's what I just feel like with the Lions. Like, they're regressing a little bit, but look, they're dealing with injuries, and you miss Laporta, that sucks. That's like Goss security blanket, whether or not, I can't remember who their backup tight end is, but I felt like they were missing him out there last night. It did. Bucs-Bills 32-44. Big time loss for the Bucs. Panthers on their heels now. One thing with the Bucs is they're really missing Evans, Godwin, and Bucky Irving badly. Their offense, while they still put up 32 points, is just missing that consistent spark. And Baker had that turnover, that interception that ended up leading to a Bills score. Josh Allen had 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. That's just pretty incredible. He also had this couple of interceptions at the beginning of the game where his completion percentage was low. I think he was like 5 for 11 with 2 picks. I was like, damn. After that week Josh had last week against Miami, now this week, he's had a couple like against Atlanta about a month or so ago. It's like, damn, man, Josh. Oh, so it's kind of some concerning play here, because it's like that team is very Josh Allen dependent. There's no doubt about it there. But Josh Allen ain't playing well. The rest of that team ain't playing well. They are a very Josh Allen reliant team. And he came to life there after those couple of interceptions. He just, again, like I mentioned, 3 passing, 3 rushing touchdowns. It looked fantastic. So, big time win there, because if they would have lost against Tampa, they'd be 3 games back from New England, and it kind of would feel like where the Broncos were at with the Chiefs, to where this is New England's division to lose. Now, they're still 2 games back. New England has some pretty easy games coming up on the schedule before their bye, but then they have to play Baltimore after that. So there are some games there that are a little tough there for New England that the Bills could potentially catch up with. But the Bills needed that win yesterday, and their offense really came to life. Josh Allen came to life. Their defense looked good on drives, which their defense has been a concern all year. But for Tampa, they're just missing. They're missing their main guys. Like I mentioned, Evans, who is supposedly coming back at some point here soon. Godwin and Irving, who I think are coming back this week, which they need desperately. Kind of feels like the Buccaneers are getting like, hey, it felt like we were comfortable. The Panthers kind of looked like they weren't very good to start off the season. New Orleans, who still isn't a threat at all. And Atlanta, who, no one trusts Atlanta. Atlanta doesn't even trust themselves. So, and they're 3-7 right now. But they did not count on Carolina being tied with them through 11 weeks of the season so far. So they're kind of in panic mode now. Again, this has been a team, when Tampa has won their first couple of weeks of the season, it was all like late game heroics from Baker Mayfield. Like those games, they could easily have 3 more losses on their schedule. So, I thought they played a good game yesterday still, but Tampa's got to look out for Carolina right now. And the way they played yesterday, they played good, but it didn't quite feel good enough. Felt like there was some there left there to be desired. But the Bills felt like they were much more of a desperate spot yesterday. At home, it felt like the Bills had to win that game, and they did. So that's why I did end up taking Buffalo in that game still, is that they just felt like a must-win for Buffalo. I kind of felt like where the Ravens were at yesterday with Cleveland. Not quite as desperate, but we're like, if we want to get back in this AFC East race, we cannot afford to lose this game, especially after the loss we had to Miami the week prior. Packers-Giants, last game I want to talk about it here today, 27-20. I want to talk about this here for like a minute or two. I mainly just kind of want to talk about the Packers kind of getting back in their groove a little bit, especially towards the end of the game. Very important for the Packers to win that game. And I was watching Winston and the Giants on that opening drive, and I was kind of like, damn, Winston, interim head coach, like do they have that interim head coaching boost that teams get when they fire their coach? They look great the next week. They oftentimes end up winning the game. So I was kind of concerned out with the Titans and Patriots about a month or so ago when they fired a Brian Callahan, and they came out. Titans were freaking firing down the field. They looked great. Cam Ward, they were scoring points. I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? I was kind of concerned about that with the Giants and Packers. I was like, the Packers could end up losing this game right now, potentially. But they didn't. It was a close game all game. The win was definitely a factor, but Jacobs with that knee injury is very concerning for that offense. But Malik Willis, when he had to come in, he scored a touchdown on the drive. He looked great. That could have ended up potentially winning them that game. They got that 7 points. They ended up winning the game by 7. So when Malik Willis had to step in, he ended up taking him down on that drive to score a touchdown, which was a really good throw and a better catch there by Christian Watson. What a catch. This was a big win for the Packers. And I felt like, especially towards the end of the game with Love, they looked hyped. They looked like they had some sort of life finally back in within the offense and the team in general. That, I think, was the game the Packers needed. I think moving forward now, the Packers are in a good spot, and I feel like they've found a groove in their offense a little bit. I think we'll have to keep an eye on this Jacobs knee injury, which could be concerning, but I think the Packers definitely found their groove a little bit. I was concerned at the beginning. Jordan Love looked bad. He took that shot. Apparently it was like an abdomen injury or something like that. I was like, if Jordan Love is out now, this Packers season could really be on the ropes. Malik Willis, again, he stepped in and looked good, but I'd still be concerned if he had to start the rest of the season, though, because he's can we trust this guy to take us and throw the ball 90 yards down the field when we need it on a game-winning drive? I don't know. And they struggled with Jordan Love in there, so I guess we'll see what the Jacobs injury is looking like. Jordan Love looked fine. The offense looked like they found some sort of life. So kind of what I'm talking about there with the Packers for a few. Parsons and that defense looked great. But yeah, that's all I got for the Packers and Giants. That's it. The Cowboys and Raiders play tonight. I'll react to that game tomorrow before Top 10 Tuesday. So yeah, that's all I got for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. Lots of good games in Week 11 yesterday. So that's all I got, y'all. Everyone take it easy, and I will see you guys on the next one.